The economy has been on a downward trend with indicators like the exchange rate, which only last month was 500 naira to a dollar. Senator Dino Milaye warned of this very trend, and like a soothsayer, it came to pass today. The dollar now settles at 495 naira to the dollar. There is more. Prices of food items have gone up without a commensurate increase in wages for both public and private sector workers. The situation seems to get worse, but the government has assured citizens that this phase shall pass. The Ease of Doing Business Report 2020 clearly shows that the business environment is improving, with more businesses being registered by the Corporate Affairs Commission, the CAC. The paradox, however, is that more businesses are closing down. Is there a balance to the new businesses that spring up and the existing ones that collapse? Joining us for a broader perspective is Jega, the former executive director, Assets Management Company of Nigeria, AMCON. We want to thank you so much indeed, sir, for joining us on News Global. What's your assessment of the Nigerian economy in the past 1 year, for a start?
Yeah, thank you, Gimba. The Nigerian economy has been underperforming in the last 1 year, and there are two reasons. One is internal, and some of the reasons are external. For example, we all know that the country is a mono economy. That is, we rely on a single commodity for most of the revenues for government and the foreign exchange earnings of the country. And we all know that in the last 1 year, because of the effect of COVID-19, oil prices have been going south. So because of that, there is more revenue for fewer revenues coming to the government. And also the foreign reserves of the country had to go down because not much was being sold with the crude oil. Now, the internal factors are that because of insecurity, many of the businesses are not doing well in the country. And another factor also that drives businesses in the country is the effect of foreign investment in the country. Now, if there's insecurity, both the country people of Nigeria and the foreigners are afraid of investing more in the economy. And this is an economy that is growing in population and in size and so on. So if there are no additional investments in the country, surely there will be a downturn in the performance of the economy.
We'll get to those investments, but when figures of inflation, exchange rates, GDP are aired, 70% of Nigerians don't seem to understand it at all. What they do, however, understand is that the cost of living keeps getting higher. Give us, if you will, a clearer picture. Why are these two views at variance?
Yes. For an economy to be healthy, GDP means the output, the gross output in the country. That is what people earn as salary, what people sell in goods and services, or what people make as profit. So everything is total, and that is GDP. So ideally, GDP is supposed to grow annually. But why GDP can grow and people will still be poor is because there is another aspect of it, which is because of the issue of wealth distribution. Nigeria is a unique case in the sense that as the country is getting wealthier, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So therefore, for an economy to be healthy, government must find a way of taxing the rich and let the money trickle to the poor people so that there will be more productivity in the country and income or wealth is not concentrated. That is one of the surest ways to control inflation. Because what is happening now is that people have goods, and whether you buy or not, they don't care to bring down the prices. So it is a clear case of mismatch in the economy.
Why do you suppose that is happening? A mismatch?
I will say it as it is. I believe that there are still many people in Nigeria that are making money not from productive ventures. Ideally, every citizen should make money as a result of productivity or hard work. But if people can make money for doing little or next to nothing, there will continue to be this problem of inequality and mismatch that there are goods to be sold, there is no money to buy them, and the prices are not coming down. Look at the case of Abuja. We know very well that there are many properties in Abuja that are vacant. People have built houses, they are vacant, and they are vacant because the average Nigerian cannot afford to pay rent on those houses. But the owners of those houses have not brought the rent down. They would prefer to keep those houses locked. Now, this is not a proper economic decision. There is no way you can build a house and lock it. If people cannot afford it, you are supposed to bring the rent down so that people can afford it. So it's a distortion. There's a lot of distortion in the economy.
To this point, those kind of distortions really break your heart because you begin to look at how these things are happening, and it brings a lot of concerns for you. Businesses are closing shop, going to Ghana, for instance. Did you see this coming? Because you're an expert in this industry. Did you see the possibility that businesses in Nigeria will begin to close and move to neighboring Ghana?
Yes, the movement of businesses to Ghana did not start today. It started several years ago. And the initial reason was because Nigeria is not very conducive for doing business in the sense that there is a lot of administrative bottlenecks, corruption, and red tapes for the business community. The businessman is used to getting things done immediately and with a plan. But you come to Nigeria and you find there are so many government agencies that are doing the same thing. There is a lot of duplication. So you know that there is a ranking of ease of doing business in the world, and Nigeria is ranking very low. So Ghana has made their country to be very easy or very good in the ease of doing business. And therefore, it is natural that the businessmen will go to where it is easier to do business. The second reason is that, unfortunately, Nigeria has had a fair share of insecurity in the West African region. And Ghana, as you know, is minimally affected by this problem of insurgency that is ravaging many of the countries in West Africa. So Ghana will naturally be a choice for people who are afraid of doing business or who are finding it difficult to do business in Nigeria. But as I've mentioned the problems or the reasons, you know there are solutions. So we have to work on the solutions. And I believe that both reasons are within the control of government if there is a will to address these two problems.
Let me break it in and just ask you this very quick question because you experienced all of these financial reforms when they were happening. How was the stock market able to be saved at the time in 2009 when the recapitalization, the financial reforms were all taking place? How was the stock market saved?
Yeah, actually, what happened in the stock market is that there were many players who did not understand the market, and the banks too were encouraging people to borrow money to buy shares, what they call margin lending. And there were no proper protocols or regulation by both the SEC in Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria on how margin lending should be handled. So people rushed into the stock market and borrowed money and bought shares, and it created a bubble. A bubble means the shares prices became higher than their actual worth. And suddenly the bubble busted. And so people were losing money, and the banks could not recover the loans they gave on those loans. Now, what government did when the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria was created is that a lot of forbearance had to be given to the players in the stock market.
people, especially the stockbrokers, who are playing a pivotal role in the stock market. So the government took a what you can call it, government took a hit by saying that okay, all the stockbrokers, all the shares we have, the government should take it as prepayment. Now, for the banks that lent money to players or Nigerians who bought shares in the market, and the banks will not recover the money, what the central bank had to do was to recapitalize those banks. And recapitalizing those banks means one of two things. Either the government will pay the cost of the recapitalization of those banks, or the banks, the healthy banks among them, will have to pay, because banking failure has a contagion effect. If one bank fails, it will drag down so many, even the healthy banks in the country. So a novel concept was created whereby the central bank agreed with the bankers that every year they will commit a percentage of their monies towards repaying that money which was put to recapitalize those banks. So it is like what you could call a win-win situation. Banks were saved, the banks that have failed were saved, so that the banks that are healthy will not fail.
But if I may just chip in here, my apologies, if I may chip in here, this same scenario was not affecting only the banks. It was a good thing that Sanusi at the time was able to stand his ground and ensure that banks recapitalized to be able to carry businesses in Nigeria to fruition. But one case has repeatedly, pondered about this case, the case of another sector, the aviation sector, Arik, for instance. What happened in that case? Did the CBN or the government, did they not see the necessity in helping businesses in the aviation sector to grow when you came on board?
I understand your question. The simple reason is this, Gimba. Banking is a unique business. It is only a bank that me and you will bring 2 naira. You bring 1 naira, I bring 1 naira, we set up a bank. But we go around the country and collect 1 billion naira from people. Banking is a unique business. So if a bank fails, it is not the owners of the bank that are going to suffer the most. In fact, it is you and me, it is every Nigerian that will suffer when a bank fails. Now, banking is a unique business. Now, because banks have the ability or are given a license to go and collect deposits from people, that is why no other business in the economy is as critical as banking. So you can afford, you can say you are saving a bank, but it's actually the economy you are saving. While if any other sector, aviation, is different. If you save, like for example, an airline, you are just saving the owners of the airline. But if you save a bank, you are saving the economy. So the way the criticality of a particular business is what determines whether a government should come in with this type of intervention or not.
Any business supporting the growth of an economy should be supported. Do you believe that the aviation sector, the aviation business, can survive in an economy like Nigeria?
I agree. Every business ought to be supported to the extent permissible by law. By saving a bank, you are also saving everybody who is doing business with that bank, including the airlines, including the aviation sector. And indeed, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, after saving the banks first, because by saving the banks, it's like you're saving everybody, then we started looking at the different sectors and see what kind of support or help or structuring we can do to some of those businesses. And in the aviation sector, there was a lot of intervention. We injected money into some of those airlines. But airline also is a special kind of business, and except the owners have a passion, except an owner of an airline has a passion for it and is also very honest, money does not solve all the problems. There are some problems that are managerial, that have to do with human resources and so on. That one, money cannot solve. So it is not as if the central bank did not intervene in helping the businesses. Those businesses who are having loans that became bad as a result of the banking crisis, on case-by-case basis, they were being identified and negotiations were going on with how to help them, how to intervene. Some succeeded, but many did not. So
Oh,
I agree
but
in
if I remember, if I'm sorry, if I remember, what happened in the case of that airline, Arik, was seen as a national carrier at the time. Halfway through the game, changing the foreign loans to, or should I say, the foreign guaranteed loans to now an on-the-table kind of situation, and he has to convert that money to that loan to naira and having to pay at 20%. Wouldn't you say that that is just being callous to businesses like that? And how can they survive?
Yes, I see your point, Gimba. Central bank did change the rules. At the time, Arik and some other debtors took some facilities from the bank. They were not cash facilities per se, they were guarantees. But central bank changed its risk profile. You know, central bank is now doing what is called risk-based supervision. So they realized that there are some transactions, although they are not cash, but they have a tendency to crystallize into cash, and they could destabilize the banking industry. Perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, what should have happened is that those kind of guarantees, when they were taken over from the banks, they should have been sterilized, but they were not. And therefore, they became also like a burden on the airlines. And to the extent that down the line, perhaps the government felt the airlines were not in the position to pay those loans and took over the airlines. But there were special cases, and I think with the benefit of hindsight, some of those loans should not have been converted into cash the way they were done.
So why then did the CBN not intervene in this kind of situation, knowing that these are capital-intensive businesses that are employing Nigerians? Why didn't the CBN intervene to help businesses like Arik or some other business, even the power sector, to survive these troubling times? Because we really need the job figures to go up.
What I'm going to say now is an opinion. I believe in the design of AMCON at the beginning was that after saving the banking industry, every businessman that has a bad debt in AMCON should be given an opportunity to work their way out of the loans, including giving them extra financial accommodation to do so. What I suspect must have happened is that a time was reached when a new government realized that they cannot continue to go that way, and therefore they became impatient with some of those businesses and they put them in receivership. But in the original design, every businessman that is willing and capable and has a good business plan should be allowed to work their way out. But I think there is an element of perhaps impatience. That is why some drastic actions were taken on some of the debtors.
I was coming from Port Harcourt just about 2 weeks back. I tried to board a plane. This particular plane, from 7 o'clock in the morning, we couldn't board. The plane was delayed all the way till 6 p.m. in the evening. This is the same Arik that we used to know and has fleets of airlines, of planes. I think at that time in 2010, they had about 18 or 15 planes that were very viable. Today they have less than 5. Does that bother you?
It does bother me, Gimba, because I know without fear of contradiction that government is not a good businessman. Government should limit its role as a regulator in the economy. whenever government tries to get involved in the business of the citizens, there is bound to be complications. Anybody who sets up an airline, not in Nigeria, this is true for most parts of the world, and I've attended aviation conferences with Boeing and so on. It is more of an issue of passion that keeps an airline afloat. So if you as a lender or you as a government decides to take over an airline, there are bound to be complications because you cannot run it the way a person who has passion, who set it up, will run it. And therefore, what I would have expected, perhaps, maybe a better way would have been that the government or the regulators should have worked with the owner to resolve the financial conditions of the airline instead of outright taking it over.
Is it too late to go back to the table and look at it from your view?
It's not too late. A receivership is not a liquidation. A receiver manager is supposed to walk alone. If it is paid back, the assets go back to the owner. But if, in all honesty, it is realized that the fortunes of the business are getting worse than when the lender took it over, it is good to have a look, to have some further renegotiation on the matter. And this is not for airline, for any business that is in receivership.
This is not the only problem that we're having in Nigeria. Another problem that affects other sectors is the automobile sector. We've seen the likes of Stair Motors in Bauchi State, where I come from. They have packed out of Nigeria. They have wrapped up business. Looking at Toyota, Toyota has also moved out of Nigeria. Wilbros, that employs thousands of our youths, is also out of Nigeria now and back to the United States of America. And the list keeps growing. Why then is it that the banks, at the end of the year, declare these huge sums of money, of profits that they have made for themselves? Meanwhile, the economy is not growing, the industries are not growing. All of this growth of the banks does not translate into meaningful development, if you will, for the industrial sector. Can we then say that the banks are not helping matters in Nigeria at all?
Let's start from the basics. To have a strong economy, you need infrastructure. You need good infrastructure in the country. Infrastructure includes power, it includes water, utilities, security, and so on. Nigeria has performed poorly in providing critical infrastructure for a modern industry to operate. So I pity the manufacturers in this country, because how do you power some big machines, especially a motor assembly plant? So at the end of the day, you will find that your products will not be competitive. Your products will not be competitive. Therefore, you will make loss. And the purpose of any business is to make profit. So if you are not making profit, you either close shop or you move to where the infrastructure will be conducive for you to make a profit. Now, that is for manufacturing and other serious industries in the country. Now, for banking, if I am to express my opinion on banking in Nigeria, I will say that bankers have been spoon-fed for a very long time in Nigeria, in the sense that, you know, before this treasury single account, what banks do is that bank will go to the government and collect deposits at very low interest rate from government establishment and government ministries. And the same government will go and issue treasury bills in the central bank, and the banks will go and invest that money in treasury bills. So it is like the government borrowing its own money from the banks. Meanwhile, at the end of the day, the margin between the deposit and the treasury bills is so high that banks will make a kill for simply doing nothing. It's arbitrage. For doing nothing, the banks are making money. But the level of that kind of laziness has been going down, because now with treasury single account, the TSA, banks are getting less and less of those cheap monies from government. But still,
If you were given an opportunity, if you were given an opportunity to serve at the fiscal level in our country, perhaps even becoming the central bank governor yourself, what will be the immediate changes you will institute to ensure that practices such as that and other practices that I barely even know myself because of the complexities, what will be those first things you'll do?
What is important for Nigeria is that there must be coordination and handshake between the monetary and the fiscal policies of the country. What I see has been happening in Nigeria is like there is almost like a rivalry between the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities. You know, the monetary authority is the Central Bank of Nigeria. They're in charge of inflation, exchange rate, interest rates, while the fiscal policy is under the Ministry of Finance. They should be in charge of the income and wages level in the country. They should be in charge of taxes, tariffs, and so on. There is no proper handshake. You will see the monetary policy going in one direction while the fiscal policy will be going a different direction. So whoever is the CBN governor or whoever is the Minister of Finance, unless there is handshake and there is coordination between the two agencies of government, we will continue to be having mixed signals and confusion in the economy.
Now, let me take you back to this. Is it sustainable to continue at this level of greed? Because what you've painted is a level of greed that I see. Can we sustain our economy with this kind of manipulations of the economy and dismal government efforts to grow the economy on the one hand, and you're having the banks even veering into areas they shouldn't, becoming entrepreneurs themselves?
We cannot. It is not sustainable. That is why, Gimba, from 1999 to date, if you look at the Nigerian economy, it has been going through a lot of ups and downs to the level that now, with the complications of insecurity and COVID-19, we are only going down. That is even with the rise, even with the rise in oil prices now, Nigeria is not coming out of the woods. And it is because a lot of wrong is going on, which is not being righted. If you ask me, being a non-partisan but objective Nigerian, who cares and thinks that the economy should come first, we should be discussing the economy more than even the politics of this country. We should sit down as a country, state by state level, and agree, what do we want to achieve in the next 10 or 20 years as a country? What are the ways to achieve those things, and start implementing them? Otherwise, we may end up with no economy if we continue like this.
We do sincerely appreciate you for your candid views on the state of Nigerian economy. Abbas Jega, the former Executive Director, Assets Management Company of Nigeria, AMCON. Many thanks indeed for talking to us.